Hello everyone, this is Fi, checking out Rocket Sword Prototype. This is a game I've not played before. We're going to give it a playtest and see if we can give some useful feedback. Sorry if it sounds a little weird at the moment, I do have the game running. We'll get into that in a moment, but first of all, if you hear any strange noise in the background, which you might not be able to over all of this gunfire, there is a dishwasher running in my place of residence here, so I just have to deal with that. But apart from that, I've got the game page open here. And it doesn't give much, except it does mention the controls. It also mentions all sounds are placeholder. Controls is mouse to aim, left mouse button or space is boost, right mouse button or shift is slice. Interesting. Middle mouse button Q or tab is toggle lock on. Alright, I don't know if WASD is being used, doesn't mention, but it also goes on to say page up and page down will adjust physics/rendering FPS to common values. So it starts at 60 FPS, goes up to 144, then 240, etc. Which is a little odd, but you know, for a prototype it makes sense. You have this kind of thing. You don't have the menus in the game yet. Let's see. So yeah, I'm guessing it's W8. Well, maybe it's not using WASD, we'll have to find out. But get rid of the overlay. I know it looks kind of funny. This is windowed in a window here. I've got the window maximized, but it's not like full screen quite, so there's going to be some borders. So the game just kind of starts running as soon as you run the executable, which is why it looks the way it does at the moment here. And my guy, as you can see, is just dead, and lots of dudes are shooting at me. So some kind of crazy sounds and stuff. One thing I will point out in terms of the audio, I know the sound's a placeholder, but when you're dealing with the panning of the audio, I don't know if you have like a 3D sound enabled, or if you're just doing the panning, the left and right mix manually. But I'm noticing, like, as the guys get towards like the left side of the screen, all of the sound ends up coming out of the left channel. Which, of course, if you're wearing headphones right now, you can also tell, which you might think is what you want, but the problem is that it sounds very unnatural when you get nothing in the right ear and everything in the left ear, or vice versa. And the reason for that being, like, in the real world, when you have sounds around you, you always hear things in both your ears. Like, you might hear it louder on one side than the other, of course, but you can still hear it somewhat in the opposite ear. So it doesn't sound natural, and it's quite irritating in my opinion, especially when you have headphones on, when you have something that's only playing in one channel. So point being, I would suggest, you know, at the extremes, you might want it to be like, I don't know what the number would be, but maybe just like 80%, like if they're off the screen or something, maybe like 80% in one channel and 20% in the other, like at the most, or something like that. You could play with it, but it doesn't need to be, like, to get this sort of stereo effect, it doesn't actually need to be panned that much, so you could probably do it even less than that, I would suggest. But I just want to point that out because it stood out to me. But I'm going to go ahead and press the R key, see what happens here. Looks like, so the boosting thing seems to be the movement, so I guess we're not using any WSD. There's lots and lots and lots of bullets. So yeah, as you can see, this is kind of sort of meme audio. I don't know what's up with the okay, we've got something resembling like a health bar or whatever. That's quite annoying to listen to, but whatever. This is up here, we have a meter that just kind of drains constantly. It looks like if you get hit by a bullet or something, it drains more. Maybe, okay, so maybe if you get kills or something, this will refill. Is that how it works? Okay, that's how it works. Alright. I was a little confused about that. Being a prototype, you don't necessarily expect all of the sort of teaching elements of how to play the game to be in yet, but wow, it's a little hard to see what's going on in some cases, like where I am. When I run into things, there's some weird physics effects sometimes. It's just that my guy, I'm not moving the mouse at all, but my guy can move extremely unpredictably. I'm literally not moving the mouse, I'm just holding the mouse button. And he's just flying around and successfully killing some things, but yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure if that's a bad thing. Like, they just sometimes he just suddenly like spins around and like does like an S or something. Oh, is there some kind of a lock on? Okay, I remember now. I wish there was a pause or something. Remember there was like a lock-on toggle in the controls. I guess there's a tab. I gotta check the page again. Middle mouse button Q or tab is toggle lock-on. Now I haven't actually pressed those keys, to my knowledge, so far, so it's a little weird that it seemed like maybe it was locking on its own. Occasionally, maybe that was some of the weird movement going on there, where it would suddenly change directions. So maybe there's some element of auto lock on, and then the buttons are for like changing what it's locked onto. Got some arrows on the sides of the screens that show where enemies might be. Looks like there's some kind of a score element. Yeah, it is locking on. I guess when your mouse goes over a guy. I hit the tab key a bunch of times. I couldn't really tell what it was doing, but it looks like when you mouse over somebody, it locks onto them. The mouse is pretty sluggish, I'm noticing. It's really quite... I mean, the cursor movement. This is quite annoying. Cursor movement is quite... there's a good amount of latency you can feel in there. I'm sure with the VSync and everything, it's going to be a little slow, but... doesn't seem to matter too much for this kind of game, I think. R, tab. I'm trying to make sense of what the lock-on controls are supposedly. Like I'm hitting tab and I can't see anything change in any case here. So not sure what that does, but it does look like it does mouse over to lock onto things, which I don't think I find really works very well, because you have to move the mouse to change the direction you want to move. So the fact that it's also kind of like locking on enemies if you happen to move the cursor over them, it's kind of like it's the two functions are kind of in conflict with each other here. So I can't really reasonably move the mouse around without like unintentionally locking onto guys and stuff. Or even if I don't move it, it'll sometimes just lock onto guys because they just happen to go through my cursor. So it occurred to me maybe the button was supposed to turn that off or something, but it doesn't seem to work. I don't know, maybe it's just the intended function there isn't working or something. So I don't know if that was meant to be something you can turn on and off. Either way, it doesn't seem like that's something that really works as it's designed, where you just move the cursor over a guy, lock onto them. I don't see that being a thing I could do like intentionally. It just seems like it just happens accidentally, and makes me do these kind of crazy movements even though I'm not moving the mouse, which is quite strange. But apart from that, I mean, it's really crazy. You fly around super fast. It's pretty fun to move around and satisfying to fly through the guys. I don't know that you can also do a spinning move. Technically, I can hold both mouse buttons. I'm not sure what the throttle is. It looks like the thrust does something, but it's obviously a lot less effective while you're spinning. So that's interesting. I wish I could just like hit R anytime. Because I get tired of hearing that sound when you die, it's really annoying. Yeah, I don't know like what much else you could do here besides fight through the guys at this point. I'm curious like what other elements might be planned to add some kind of depth to this. It's a bit hard to see this as something you would kind of take seriously, you know, like it's so far it's fun, but I'm not sure where the skill elements are going to come in, where it's actually going to give you a lot that you can work with to optimize your play and get better at and get further in the game. Right now it's quite mindless, so yeah, I guess that would be my question, like what else might be in store, and if it's going to make it feel maybe a little less spastic and more like you're kind of in control of what's happening. Which might be a little hard to do with the way that this is currently set up. But yeah, I think the locking on is just making it a lot more or less in control than otherwise. Looks like we actually do have different enemies here. So I was under the impression that there was just going to be this one enemy type. It looks like we actually have more here. But yeah, this is really mindless. Not really. Whoa. Okay, so I don't know. Maybe the spinning can like kill some of these missiles or something. Well, I can't see myself. All right, it's weird how I'm going off the screen. I'm not really sure. Okay, it looks like we can deflect the missiles. That's cool. I like that. I like that. Problem is, it's really hard to see. Like the intelligibility of the game is quite low, I would say, at the moment. So. Can be a little hard to do that consistently. Yeah, I can't really consistently tell if there's going to be missiles here. Oh, looks like I managed to right click on the top bar of the window here, which thankfully paused the game, but it's kind of silly to, I guess, to have this control scheme without having a proper full screen mode. Can cause this kind of thing to happen. So before I go back into this, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so apart from the camera, apparently it doesn't really keep up the way it should some of the time, which is weird. But apart from that, you also have to take into consideration like how far you can see, in particular in the up and down directions here with a 16:9 screen ratio like I have. You can see a little bit further on the left and the right. But especially when you're looking like up and down, you can't see very far, so you do have to keep those kinds of limitations in mind, especially when you want to have, things like projectile attacks that you can like react to. You can end up in a lot of situations where you just don't really, like if they're going in this direction, you don't really have the time to react to things like that. Okay, again, that was a little weird when I'm going off the screen. There's a little bit of acceleration you have to take into account here. I mean, you definitely have some inertia, but you do like after a moment you start accelerating really fast, but before you kind of picks up speed, you don't move that much. So you have to kind of remember that. So put the right amount of boost in if you have to make like a small adjustment or something. So last time when I died, I kind of wanted to hit those missiles that were coming at me, but I was going downwards. So I tried to move upwards a little bit, but I just didn't really move because I only hit the boost briefly. So you can see there with those missiles, that was exactly what I was talking about, where they just flew straight into me and there was no possible way I could react to that, even though in that particular case I would have been able to actually clearly see that there were just missiles coming because there wasn't anything else on the screen that was making everything unintelligible. So stuff to consider. So yeah, I'm not sure if there are any other enemies. It does seem like, considering the pacing of the game, and maybe it took a little while for those to show up. Yeah, the locking on is really just causing me more trouble than anything. I don't know if that was supposed to be turned off or whatever. Those missiles. You also just get like a gigantic blob of missiles sometimes that fly into you. Alright, collision maybe is a little weird there. If I could, I would pause the video and rewind it, but it looked like my sword was kind of touching those missiles, but it didn't quite hit them yet, so I'm not sure if maybe the colliders on when you do the spinning, maybe they're a little bit inadequate and too small or something to that effect, I don't know. Alright. I like that you can hear the missiles when they shoot them, that's definitely helpful. Because then it's like, oh, you can kind of wait for them to come and get you. Yeah, it can be a little bit... maybe just a little bit annoying when you have to like restart and then it kind of takes a little while to get back to where you were or something. I don't know if that's... maybe the pacing is fine, but... wow, okay. Alright, well I got hit by like 10 missiles simultaneously, it almost instantly killed me. Not sure if that's something you necessarily want to have in a game where... I mean, a lot of games, you know, they have this, like, ones are just spaced out. A lot of games have these like invincibility frames after you get hurt. Okay, this is really weird. So that time it was like everyone was so spaced out, I couldn't really get the kills I needed. So that makes me wonder, like, if I just like stay around the ground, are they all gonna like clump up? And if I do certain kinds of maneuvers, are they all gonna spread out crazy like that? So it definitely seems like there might be some sort of meta element there where you have to play in like a really specific way to kind of herd the enemies, or they're just going to kind of screw you over. I'm not sure if that's something you might want to design around, and maybe there's ways you can prevent that kind of weirdness. Not sure it occurs to me though. But from what I was saying before, so of course some games have things like the invincibility frames after you get hit. You might get like a second or a half second before you can take another hit. It's usually to prevent things like that, where I can't see myself. If it is possible that like a bunch of enemy attacks could just clump up a lot, you generally don't want this effect where you're supposed to be somebody who can survive. I don't even know why I died here. If you're supposed to be somebody... Actually, I think I can fake pause this. Okay. I right-clicked on the top of the window again. But if you're supposed to be a character that can survive like a certain number of hits, like say you can survive 5 hits or something, and 5 attacks just kind of like blob together and overlap each other and just hit you all at once and you just die instantly, then you're not really getting the intended effect that that you can survive 5 hits. You know, it's just like you basically just died in one instead. So it's like kind of breaking the design of the game at that point. So I think even though this is kind of like a ridiculously spastic sort of game, I think it would even with that simple sort of I don't know, old school solution, I think it would suit the game better if you just had something like that where if you do get hit, you just go invincible for a short time before you could take another hit, so you're only taking 1 hit at a time is the goal there. I think that would suit this game well. So that would be a big improvement. And apart from that, I'm just noticing in general, it's like sometimes I die because I'm not really focusing and I'm just talking and stuff like that, but sometimes it's kind of like I'm not really sure that I actually did anything wrong. You know what I mean? It's kind of generally not a good sign if you feel like you don't really know how to further optimize the game what you're playing. You know, generally you want the players to understand, like, oh, that was my bad, I need to do this or that in order to play better. This is awkward. Okay. But if you have these situations where it's like the player doesn't know why they lost or whatever, then it's kind of, it's discouraging for the player because they don't have anything to aim for. It just seems like the game just punished them and they don't know why or something. So one of the general hardships of making games, I guess, situations like that, especially if you're trying something that isn't whoa, okay, it hasn't been done a lot, or just is some kind of new idea or whatever, because then you don't have like examples of games that already work that you can just kind of copy or whatever. It's a little hard to look at this and talk at the same time. Wow, okay. Alright, so in this case, I know you can't... Oh gosh, this sounds awful. I know you couldn't see it happening, but I actually accidentally clicked and dragged the the window from the top bar instead of accelerating. I just kind of dragged the window off to the right side of my screen and then ended up dying afterwards. So it'd be definitely nice to have a proper full screen mode. I tried Alt Enter, it didn't seem to work. I don't think I need to change... What was it, page up and page down? I tried pressing page up just now, I don't know whether that might change anything. It actually looks like my... Oh, okay. So I don't know how much is changing with this, the frame rate change thing. What do they call it? The physics / rendering FPS. I guess, you know, it's Alright, I'm gonna try and leave that running for now. Let's actually turn the volume down a little there. Hopefully this doesn't sound horrible in the final video here. But yeah, I guess it's just for testing purposes. It's obviously a little weird to like adjust the physics rendering rate in the game because, you know, that would be something you probably want to be locked. But yeah, just the only thing I really noticed when I tried turning it up a little, excuse me, is that the cursor seemed to shake around more. But there's probably other differences there. I think, you know, naturally in the final version I'd want to be able to adjust, might want to adjust the rendering FPS independently. You know, I probably don't want to adjust the physics FPS here, but yeah, I think yeah, I don't think I really missed anything. I'm not sure if there's other enemies to find later in the game here, but I'll probably wrap this up. I think we've kind of looked at this for long enough, but yeah, it's cool. I mean, the presentation is kind of nice. It's ultra juicy, and the visual style is just this sort of fun, almost Flash game look, but it's more obviously more pixelated, so it doesn't have that super weird smooth anti-alias look that a lot of Flash games have, I guess. But yeah, it's really cool in terms of the aesthetic of it and how it feels to just fly through all the enemies and watch them blow up. It feels really cool. But yeah, I wonder if you can find ways to rein it in a little bit where it's a little bit less. It doesn't feel like the player isn't in control so much. I definitely think getting rid of this sort of lock-on effect where you mouse over to lock onto something is going to help a lot, because then you can actually like control the direction you're moving properly without it just like your guy just taking off somewhere else all of a sudden and this kind of thing. It's hard for me to imagine how the lock-on would work at all, to be honest, because of how fast everything flies around. With the current pacing of the game. So I'm not sure how that'll work, if it works at all, but at the very least I would get rid of, you know, the mouse over effect, and maybe you want to like use a different button for that to trigger locking onto something or whatever, I don't know. But yeah, I think just intelligibility and making sure the player feels like they're actually in control of what's going on, and you know, not like they're just flailing around randomly and hoping for the best, that kind of thing. I do like the way you can reflect the missiles, because that kind of gives you like a clear thing that you can react to. You know, that's one of those things that makes you feel a little bit more in control of what's going on, because okay, there's missiles coming and I can press the button at the right time, and then I did it, and you know, like something good happened. So maybe you can get more of that in the game. But again, like things like the visual intelligibility and the camera and stuff will, in my opinion, still need to be worked on, to even just to make it like work with the missiles that you have now, because there's a lot of cases where that didn't really work out very well for me, because I couldn't really see the missiles coming when they did fly into me. It was just like all of a sudden they just flew into me. And yeah, I would definitely look at the collision when you're spinning with the sword. At least for the missiles in particular, it kind of looked like the missiles had to sort of run into like the guy instead of the sword hitting them. So I don't know what you did with the colliders there, but maybe, you know, it definitely felt like it should have, like, the bigger area that my sword was covering should have hit the missiles when they touched that bigger area, rather than hitting like the middle of my character, and that kind of thing. So yeah, hopefully this was useful for you. I think it's, you know, it's a game that's really kind of appealing on a surface level, which is definitely a good thing, because you want to it's very hard these days to draw people into your game for a lot of people. So yeah, I think you've got something that's kind of attractive, and that's pretty good. So hopefully this was useful for you. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video.